Hi, my name is Lupe Llerenas, and I am a music entertainment journalist, host, and producer.
I stopped literally like from the very beginning, like childhood. Like, what was life growing up, especially like elementary years? And did you grow up with siblings?
Growing up, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, so about maybe like an hour away from Long Beach. And I am the youngest of five siblings, so yeah, I definitely grew up with siblings. And growing up, it was pretty eventful, if I must say. I remember my dad taking us and me and my siblings to McDonald's on every Sunday, and every Friday when he would get his paycheck, we'd go and cash it, and he'd go to the liquor store, and we'd buy toys off in the liquor store, or like chips and stuff like that. So definitely very eventful growing up for me. I have so many amazing memories growing up with all of my four other siblings and my parents. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. Very blessed to have a nice childhood.
Cool, cool. And so as you were going in elementary, did you guys get to be like around the same grades and stuff? Like,
Roughly, not really though, because the oldest is I think 11 years older than me, and then right after her is one that's 2 years younger than her, or 1 year younger, and then is 2 years younger than her, and then there's like a really big gap of me. I want to say maybe like 7 years apart from that last child, into my brother, and then myself. So I didn't really grow up going to school with them, so I didn't really have that luxury, I guess you can say, of saying, "Well, my brother comes to school here as well," or "My sister also is in this grade, and I'm in this grade." So not really, but I did have cousins that we were around the same age, and we were similar grades in the same school.
ooh, cool. We're gonna take our first commercial break. What time I
Hey,
played them?
I'm Rob Flores, the host of the Golden Spotlight. Join me every Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific as I showcase a variety of guests.
So we're on commercials right now?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm on Instagram Live. So, hi guys, this is Rob. I'm at Cal State Northridge. I mean, not Northridge. Definitely not Northridge. Sorry about that. I'm at Cal State Long Beach. This is a radio run station, 22 West Radio. And yeah, so he invited me to be on his
Every week, some
show,
steps into the
and I guess
spotlight
those
and
are
shares their
students.
story.
This is
You
actually
never
pretty
know what we
cool.
have in store on 22 West Radio.
Do you remember what was like your earliest, favorite subjects and stuff?
Definitely, I was more of an English person, like language arts, more on the creative side. I wasn't really big with numbers. So not science. Well, actually, somewhat of the science. I really liked history, and definitely, like I mentioned, English and language arts were a lot more fun for me on that end.
Cool, cool. And you mentioned, you were close with your cousins and stuff, so they were in the same school, or?
Yeah, I had one cousin who I am maybe like 4 months older than her. So we went to similar elementary and then middle school, and then once middle school ended, she went to a different high school and I went to a different high school. But growing up elementary and middle school, yeah, I did have cousins that, I was within the same grade and age.
Growing up, especially, having older siblings and stuff, did you get to turn to them for advice? Did you turn to your parents for advice? The early ages,
Somewhat. Like I said, my sisters and brothers were a lot older than me, so I would see a lot of their, I guess, dilemmas in life that they would have, and that would serve as somewhat of a lesson. But as I grew up older, I would definitely, I would ask my sisters for advice, and then my sisters, left home and made their own lives, so I had my older brother there, and he was another big impact of the person that I would go for advice. Like I wanted to join something in school, I'd go for advice to him. Or I wanted, like I had like a subject question or like a homework, and I'd go, ask for his help. My parents, were your typical Spanish speakers only, very little elementary. If in the case, they would have dropped out of school to work, they come from Mexico. So on that end, I'd get advice from them, but it was all in Spanish. So one thing that my mom would always tell me when I was little is that she would always say that education was my key to success and my key to get out of where we were. Because, although I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, we grew up, in a very minority, low income section. So me going to school, me getting good grades, being, a studious student growing up, that was my key of, my mom always told me, hey, school is like your best option. And thankfully, I loved going to school. Like I would hate miss, like be absent, or I would, anything that would allow me to miss school, I'd be sure to find another option of, I don't want to miss school. I want to be present in class. So pretty much, be the best person you can be, get a good grades, be a good student, and everything else would plan out. That's for the advice that my parents gave me.
Cool. So being that, they spoke primarily Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
what was it like when you were growing up, especially like, let's say, like how many TVs were in the household? Did you guys watch like novelas together and stuff like that?
Yeah, so one of my biggest fondest memories growing up was that, how normally every kid has an alarm clock? Well, my alarm clock was a las 6 de la mañana, el noticiero like Noticias Univision. Like that was my alarm clock. My mom would put on Noticias 34 in Univision at 6, bright and early, 6 in the morning, and that was my wake-up call of, it's the morning, like, you gotta get up for work. We didn't have no alarm clocks, none of that, at least for myself, and that was my wake-up call. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of TVs around the house. Roughly had maybe like, for sure, my brother had one in his room, my mom had one in her room, and then we had one in the kitchen, and at that time, my mom also had one in the little kitchen. And it was very small, and that's where she would watch her, like, El Gordo y la Flaca, or, like, las novelas también. So I vividly remember getting out of school and rushing home to watch TV, whether if it was, like, TRL or, like, a Spanish novela, because at that time, novelas for little kids would go on, like, around 3 in the afternoon, and then roughly around 7. And then after that, like, more adult novelas would come on. So definitely do remember having lots of TVs around the house and waking up to las noticias and watching novelas with my mom.
Cool. And your siblings, did you guys watch like a mixture, or did you guys
We
just
would
stick to
watch
Spanish?
music videos. We would with my brother Frankie. I would watch music videos with him. With my brother Tony, we would watch sports. We would watch sports, and we would watch like wrestling. Like at that time, it was WWF. And then like it transitioned to WWE. So definitely we would watch wrestling. We'd watch sports, like any Lakers games at that time. A lot of soccer and like boxing with my dad on like Sunday mornings, or if there was like a boxing match, Saturday night. But other than that, it was mostly definitely cartoons, wrestling, and a lot of music videos.
Cool. I've had fun with this lately. I've been asking them, my guests, what kind of cartoons did you watch? What was the kids' programming like that you watched at the time?
For me, on Saturday mornings, like I would wake up. There was a really big portion of my childhood where I didn't have cable, so I would watch like Plaza Sésamo, or I would watch all the cartoons that were like in Spanish Saturday mornings. But then after we ended up getting cable, and I would watch like Nickelodeon, or I would watch Disney Channel. in the mornings. But in the morning, it was more like Rocket Power, like Hey Arnold. So yeah, those were the kind of cartoons that I would watch. Most likely, they would all be in the weekends because that was like my free time, and there wasn't no noticias and there was no novelas on the weekends.
Even just for going to school, did your parents walk you guys, or did your parents drop you guys off?
So for like elementary, my mom would walk me every morning. We would walk from like, it was roughly around maybe 5 blocks away, but every morning we would walk. And every afternoon she'd pick me up in like the blazing hot, sunny days, and we'd walk back. So that was throughout elementary. And then maybe until I got into fifth grade or so, I got into, or what I was in a program called Ellie's Best, and it was an after school program, and I would after school in elementary I would go to that program and they would help me with my homework. I'd have activities, arts and craft and whatnot, roughly around till like 5, 6 in the afternoon, and then my mom would pick me up and we'd walk back home. So that was all throughout elementary. In middle school, my dad would pick me up in like this really big car that they had back then. And then after that, once I hit high school, it would get difficult. So my mom would pay someone to like give me a ride throughout like maybe 3 years of high school, because my senior year I ended up getting a car, and or my friends had cars, and they dropped me off or I walked to or from school.
Oh, cool. So growing up, especially during elementary and stuff, like I heard that there was like a time also where like teachers would get strict and be like, oh, like please no talking Spanish in class. Did you experience any of that, or what was it like? Did you get to like have some kind of bilingual program, or?
I never had. Thankfully, I never had any circumstances like that. From what I do recall, all of my teachers at that time were very very well mannered and put together. So I don't ever recall them telling us, hey, you can't speak Spanish. If anything, we would help. Like myself, I would recall teaching our like Caucasians, English speaking teachers Spanish. So thankfully, I never like came across that circumstance. But if it's happening now, it's a shame.
How about the transition to middle school? What was that like?
Transition to middle school from then, it was pretty smooth, I would say. However, I did like encounter somewhat of like the bullying because I'd wear glasses or I had pimples, and all that would play a factor in how I looked. And then me wearing glasses, me having pimples would eventually make me a nerd. And I loved school, so that played a big factor in that. But other than like somewhat of the bullying, it was pretty smooth. Nothing out of the ordinary.
How did you cope with that though? Like, did you right away like tell your siblings and stuff, or what happened?
No, like honestly, if I would get like if people would call me names, okay, they would call me names and that was it. Like I'd brush it off. If they would say, "Oh my God, pimple face" or "pizza face," like stuff like that, it was just like okay, and like I'd continue with my day. Thankfully, it never really got to me. Not from what I can remember. So it was sad that they would, now that I think about it, it was sad that they would use names like that to call other people names, but it never really got to me or like lowered my self-esteem or anything like that.
At that time in middle school, did your interests change?
Interest in what?
Like maybe like TV or like favorite subjects?
Actually, all throughout like elementary, middle school, and high school, I wanted to be a counselor. Yeah, it wasn't until maybe that I was in actual like community college college that I was like, oh, I like radio and I like broadcast and I like journalism and I can write and I have a way with words, that it all changed. But growing up, like my thing um, was that I was going to be a high school counselor.
Cool, cool. So going to high school, was there anything different? Or
No, I mean, I was a pretty popular, I was the popular student, but the popular that liked to go to school on an everyday. I was super involved. I was in ASB, which was like leadership. I was captain of a fire academy like 3 years of my high school. I was in wrestling. I was in softball. I did somewhat of the cheer. So I was pretty well known all throughout high school. However, because I liked school so much, I was still considered the quote unquote a nerd.
what was that wrestling like?
Oh, wrestling was awesome. Like it was for like a year and a half. I was the only girl that was in the wrestling team. But then after that, a younger girl came in, and it was the two of us in the wrestling team with surrounded by like 12 other guys. So it was pretty amazing. I never really got to meet other wrestlers up until when I like got into college, that I would say like, oh, I wrestled, or things like that. And then now at work, I know a girl who we're the same age, and she's like, dude, like, I remember you wrestling. And I was like, I remember you too, but like, we never spoke. She went to a different high school, I went to a different high school. But if we look back, like, I still have like my wrestling match shirts, and in the back it has our names. Her name is on there, and my names are on there. So on that aspect, it was pretty cool now to say I was in a wrestling team.
That's cool. I was wondering, did you deal with any injuries though, also from doing all these sports stuff?
Thankfully, no. Until this day, I have not, and I think, knock on wood, because I don't know what it would be like. Yeah, I thankfully I have not. The only issue is me wearing like being wearing glasses and losing or breaking my glasses like so many times because the ball would hit me, or my glasses I'd like be pinned like down in wrestling, and my glasses would get messed up because my goggles couldn't protect them. So like things like that, but an actual injury that would like mess my bones up, thankfully none.
What was your parents' reactions to joining that?
At first they were like, why don't you grow like join a lady like um team or like a sport. But like I said, whenever I grew up with my brothers, my older brothers, so I would go to him for like everything, like, hey, like, dude, like, I want to join wrestling. He's like, yeah, sure, it's self-defense, go for it. And he'd like give me that point, that like, yes. So then he'd tell my dad and my parents and be like, hey, like, Lupe is gonna join the wrestling team. It's really good for her because like that she can defend herself if anything happens. Like, he would always give me my like co-signed of me joining all these sports, and my parents would eventually be okay with it.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
For throughout all these different sports that you're mentioning, or were they all like in the same year, or did you only do one sport at a time? Or
They were rough. Some of them were around the same year. Like softball, would interfere somewhat with wrestling, and then in the fall it was only wrestling, and then softball was in the beginning of the year, towards the end of the year. So it would be like this, like November, December, early January, February. And then cheer would be between, end of the summer, early winter, fall, and then that's when wrestling would start. So it would kind of, interfere, but not to a certain extent that, oh, I can't do both. Because if I would start one, the other sport was already ending.
another question I have is, throughout the time that you're going through your schooling and stuff with K-12 being, my dad also had the same experience where his dad got him out of school early. He stopped like at second or third grade to work on a ranch in Jalisco, and So he didn't get the opportunity to like work and stuff. So I wasn't ever able to like get his help for like homework and stuff. What was it like dealing with homeworks throughout all this time?
Throughout all that time, I had the help of my like older brothers, or like I said, I was also part of that after school program, and that was the main reason why my mom ended up getting me in that program, because by like fifth grade, school started, like the homework started to get a little trickier, and obviously since my dad or my mom couldn't help me, and my brother had, you know, his own stuff, like he had sports, he was also in soccer, he was also in football, they had that to like carry on with his schooling too. So they ended up getting me into this program, and this program would help me with my work and homework in the afternoons. So thankfully, I didn't like they would like I would get it done before going home every afternoon, and they'd be like, "Oh, did you finish your work?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I finished it in Ellie's Best." And they'd be like, "Oh, so what was it about?" And I give them a rundown of what it was at that time. So that's how they would somewhat be in the loop of what my homework was. For them to physically help me, not really, because like I said, they didn't speak English.
We'll be right back after this second commercial break.
An organization
What's
where
up,
you
you
can participate in
guys? Hi
programs providing
guys,
people with
I'm
assistive
here
technology,
in
including workshops
Cal
on how to
State
use
Long
them,
Beach
housing
at their
workshops for homeless crisis
22 West
assistance,
Media
and
student-run
employment
radio
services
station.
such as resume writing, along with
That is
interviewing
Rob,
skills.
who is interviewing
For more
me, and
information,
we're currently live,
visit
right?
Yes.
So where can people hear the interview?
22westmedia.com.
22westmedia.com if you want to listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Golden Spotlight. We are 22S Radio, broadcasting from California State University, Long Beach. This is KKJZ, FM HD3, Long Beach, Los Angeles, and 22smedia.com. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back to the Golden Spotlight. I'm your host, Rob Flores, and if this is your first time tuning in, again, this is an interview biography talk show where I interview my guests. Now, going back to the topic of, we're mentioning how, what was it like, with homework and stuff like that. In addition, most would say maybe senior or junior year is like the most stressful and stuff.
Oh, it was not stressful at all.
Oh, okay.
Senior, junior year of high school, like I said, I grew up in like a really low income community. So my high school was give or take. It had its good and its bads. But I at that time when I was in school, we had tracks. So we had A track, B track, and C track. A track were like all the smart kids, all the little like magnet kids. B track was like a lot of like the ESL students. They would come from different countries. Spanish was their second language, and then C track was a mixture of both. So I was in C track, but high school for me was a breeze. Growing up, I loved school, so English was a breeze. The only thing that I did struggle somewhat was with math, but it was like never a problem for me to ask for help, because I would be like, okay, well, I can't get something in math or like in algebra 2. I'd go to tutoring. So other than that, I feel like high school was a breeze for me because I was so involved with so much activities and like organizations and clubs that made it fun.
Cool. What was that like, the activities?
With the activities, like I said, it was wrestling, it was leadership, it was being captain of like the fire academy that I was in. So it was good. I feel like at a really young age, like 16, 17, I learned what time management was, because I had to juggle being a quote-unquote student, doing my homework, and still going to practice, going to meetings, and being involved with school. So I feel like if I weren't have been involved like that in high school, I would have not like caught on to like time management at such an early age.
Cool. Tell us about you mentioned the fire group?
Yeah, the fire academy. So like when I said all throughout high school, I wanted to, I guess, become a high school counselor. But that like roughly ended up switching once I got into college. So then just to keep myself busy, like my high school had a fire academy, and that fire academy would pretty much, it was like a PE class, but we would do a lot of activities related to wanting to become a firefighter. So we'd be called cadets, and we'd train with like fire hoses. We'd train with like at fire stations, and it was pretty much equivalent to being a cadet at a fire station if you wanted to become a firefighter. But it was so interesting to me at that time that I was so intrigued by it that I really liked it. So I stuck with it for like maybe 3.5 years. And then once I hit, I want to say 10th grade, I was no longer a cadet. I was a co-captain, and I would overlook all of like the high school students or the high school cadets at that time that were in my class. And then once I hit senior year, I was captain of the fire academy. So it was fun. Now that I look back, I'm so glad I took it because I didn't really want to take the typical PE class. So that was a way out, and it just gave me a different aspect and a different point of view in life because what we would as cadets we would endure. It wasn't your typical running a mile run, or it wasn't your typical let's do a physical activity in PE class. It was more hands-on. Like we'd take CPR classes, we'd get certified, and we would train with actual firefighters at that time in different fire stations.
That's pretty cool. I know that in high school usually there's also the whole community service hours required usually to graduate and stuff like that. I take it you also had to do like you volunteered and stuff also during high school?
Yeah, I volunteered. A lot of the work that I did in high school would transition as community service. So it was that came in handy. But like other than that, I think I did more community service once I was out of high school.
So senior year as that's another thing. Did you get to partake in like maybe like running for like office and stuff, for like the dances and stuff?
I did. I ran for homecoming queen, my senior year of high school, and like I said, I was quote unquote popular, but I was still pretty studious. That would make me fall into the category of being a nerd. So I ran for homecoming queen my senior year of high school. It was the best thing ever. Running that campaign of having the students, vote for you was one of the like funnest things I did in my senior year, and I feel like that's when I started to get my speaking skills and my being in front of an audience or a people that really intrigued me into wow, I like public speaking and I like being the center of attention, quote unquote. I like gravitating to an audience or talking to people. So I definitely it was fun running for homecoming queen senior year.
Cool. So you were always outgoing. You were never like shy at all to give like public speaking speeches.
No. I was always, whenever in class a teacher would need, hey, I need a volunteer, I'd always be the first one to raise my hand. I liked helping, and I liked being in front of an audience talking to people.
Cool. So eventually, seniors, high schoolers, get to the point where they're like, oh, like, what am I gonna do next? Prom also, like, did you get to partake in like, grad night and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I did. We did senior picture days. The panorama picture that you take with your entire class. My friends and I, we wore color coordinated so we could stand out in our panorama picture. Grad night was definitely a part of it. In high school, I won like 2 scholarships because I was so involved throughout high school. And then what else was there? Senior ditch day, I didn't do it because obviously, like I said, I liked going to school, so I wasn't gonna miss and get get an absent in senior year because I wanted perfect attendance throughout high school when I graduated. So, but yeah, I definitely partake in all the activities that were throughout high school.
Cool, cool. So eventually, senior year wraps up. Did you know right away what school you wanted, what major you wanted, and all that?
Yeah, I knew I had my mindset that I was gonna go to a community college. My older brother had gone to a community college, and at that time, out of my 5 siblings, my brother was the only one that had gone to a community college. Shortly after, my sister, one of my oldest sister, went to like a small trade school, and she ended up getting like a degree in like, I think radio, something to do with like medical field. But it was them who only the only ones in my family that went to quote unquote get some further high school education. So I knew that I was going to go to a community college. I knew I was going to go there that route because I didn't have enough money. My parents obviously didn't didn't know any English. And the only way that I could actually be like, hey, I'm going to go to college was for me to be going to a community college and get as much funding and as much help as possible. And I'm so glad I went that community route because I ended up switching my career. Like, I had the intention of being a high school counselor. Maybe like my second year into a community college, I did a completely 360 and I was like, hey, like, this is no longer my type of thing anymore. I'm not really intrigued by psychology or like any of the like child development classes. I think I'm gonna go into like the communications radio entertainment route. And that's exactly what I did. Everyone in college was like, hey, it's gonna take you longer, and I'm like, it's fine. It's fine as long as it makes me happy. And I'm so glad I went that route. And even though it did take a year and a half longer, the typical community college is only 2 years. I unfortunately took 3 years because I switched my major, but I would not want it any other way because I'm now here where I am. And then I went to Cal State Northridge where I got my degree in broadcast journalism and gender women studies. And I've gotten all these amazing opportunities now that I have. And if it weren't for me, like, who knows, what I would have done or been. I'm pretty sure I would have been an amazing high school counselor because I love helping. But I also love what I do right now, and I'm so glad, I'm so thankful that I chose this route.
So which community college was it?
I went to Los Angeles Mission College back in the San Fernando Valley. And at that time, in fact, right after transferring out from a community college into a Cal State, I came to Long Beach City College because that was the only, at that time, that was the only college within the LA, Los Angeles City Unified District that had a radio station. So I would drive from the San Fernando Valley to Long Beach weekly to host a college radio show. And I wasn't even going to that college, but because they were the only college in my district that would have student-run radio stations, I would drive that hour and a half weekly just to have my own radio show.
Cool. How did you find out about it?
Because at that time, I think there's 9 LA district city colleges all across Los Angeles, and you get emails from everything, and if one professor at one college knows something, they'll most likely know someone else at another college. And it was pretty much word of mouth. And then when I found out that they had a college radio station run by students at Long Beach City College, I was like, I'm gonna go up for it. I'm gonna do it. And I did it, and I met a few of really good friends there that would help me run this nightly show that I would have at Long Beach City College.
Cool. Now, going back a little, when we were mentioning about high school and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, did you have to do the KC or that there's some kind of test that
Oh,
involves?
yeah, I did do the Casey. I struggled with that thing. Thankfully, it's no longer a thing. They ended up taking it out. But Yeah, the California High School exit exam or something like that. English, I passed it with a breeze, like nothing. Math, I did struggle with it. I didn't pass it the first time. And then I went to like KC boot camp, which was Saturday class, because I really wanted to pass it. And I didn't want to like struggle again with it. So I took Saturday class and then I took the exam and I finally passed the math portion of it. But yeah, I thought it was the most tedious, annoying thing ever. Thankfully, a few years later, after I graduated, they took that thing away and was like, "Yeah, that thing is no longer a thing." And I was like, "Yeah, why was it in the first place?" Because it was pointless.
As you were making the decision of what college to go to when you went to the community college, or even when you transferred, what was it like as far as even uh, the change of scenery from high school campus? You know, the size, the ratio to teachers and stuff like that.
I'm glad I went to a community college because classes weren't that big. But then again, I never struggled with asking for help. If I needed help, if I was struggling with something, I'd make sure I'd ask for help, and I knew someone would eventually help me. So that was never a problem for me. And then even after I transferred out to a Cal State, I still asked for help for everything. So the whole big classroom and one teacher, yeah, it happened and it was a thing, but the fact that I always asked for help made it like it was gonna be okay,
When
and it
you
was okay.
when you did start at these schools, did you at least know anybody, or did you just start from scratch, like not knowing anyone?
I knew a few people, family friends that were in that same college, but like I was still very involved in community college and in when I was in Cal State, that me asking and like, hey, I'm new to this campus type of thing, or I want to join this because I want to meet more people. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, and I would still, meet people.
Ooh, cool. And so when you did go to start your show, what was it like? Did you know right away what kind of show you wanted when you went to this college?
Yeah, because I knew the show prior to me was more like it was on a Thursday night. And a Thursday night in a college is pretty much like the turn up. Like, it's the last week of school, if you don't have Friday or Saturday classes. But it's literally the last week of school, no classes, you're ending the week strong, you want a party type of thing. So I would have a show called Nights with Lupe Love. And we just talk about, like, I would have like a healthy beauty tip. I'd have like ideas on how to pregame to have like a successful like turn up, kickback. I had like very small scenarios of what it was to be in college, and I would just offer somewhat of advice.
You were mentioning about having a show. Um, what was it like? Learning the stuff. In the community college radio station. The experience.
Um, uh, it was very interesting. At that time, I was getting really into radio and journalism and music. Even though growing up, I did enjoy watching music videos. I did enjoy watching like all these like music music shows about obviously music. It wasn't until, like I said, I got to college that I was just like, holy crap, like I really like this. So learning it was fun. It was, I guess you can say, a little nerve wracking at the beginning, because it's something you don't want to mess up, and it's something like, oh my god, there's so many buttons to like push to remember what is what. So a little nerve wracking, but other than that, like, it was really fun for me to learn something new and eventually see how on the other end of like a speaker or like a screen, people were able to hear me, and that was just mind blowing to me.
And as you were, what was the process like to to get the show in the first place, like, did you have to speak to someone in particular, as far as, like, learning, like, the lingo or the positions that are available at a radio station and stuff like that?
Not really, other than I had to, talk to the professor and make sure it'd be like I had the units, and it was only gonna be like a 3 credit class or a unit class, and then from there on, that's when it started. Like, okay, pitch me the idea of what a potential show you would have. What will you talk about it? Or in it, and then from there on, that's how it started to grow. So it was pretty much, word of mouth and talking to the professor, and from there, it eventually grew.
Cool. And of course, what was it like? Did you also play music, or was it?
Yeah, we would play music. I would have a DJ who would be in the mix live, and he would DJ. His name was DJ not Damage. I can't remember his name anymore. But he would DJ live, and he would play all his music. So it was pretty much like, I guess you can say, a turn up on a Thursday night, getting ready to either go out or hang out with friends.
Cool. What was that first broadcast like?
Nerve-wracking. Nerve-wracking, but like literally I think after the first break, it felt so natural to me because it was literally me just having a conversation. A conversation with my friend on the other end, who I obviously had no idea who was listening, but it was just me having a conversation with a person on the other end, and that was it. Like, we would talk from A to B, and then all the way to Z, and that was it. Like, the 2-hour show would go by so quick, and it was so much fun.
Cool. And you were mentioning how you were involved in high school. Did you get to partake in activities in community college?
Yeah, I was all throughout school, all throughout elementary, middle school, high school, community college, and college, Cal State. I was super involved. In community college, I was in MECHA. I was in ASB again. I served as the athletic senator, so it's pretty much the reporter between the sports and the community, so I'd report on the sports. I was a part of the bachata club. I was super involved. And then once that was done at a community college, I transferred out, like I said, to Cal State, and there at Cal State, I was a part of the Latino Journalism Department, their Hispanic Journalism Association, their Radio Television Digital News Association, and I was also a part of Hermanas Unidas de CSUN at that time, all of which those same programs Cal State Long Beach has. Because we would go to like conferences or clubs, and Long Beach would be there. So, super involved all throughout. Until this day, I'm still involved with a lot of stuff.
How did you reach the decision of which university to transfer to?
Because it was close to home, and I was still going to be at home. It was either that or San Francisco State. And I went to San Francisco State, and I was just like, yeah, this is not my vibe. It's very like, I'm a city girl. I love the noise. I love traffic. I love writing, being, on the go. So I felt like, San Francisco State was very mellow for me. And I was like, yeah, I don't see myself in this at all.
Each of these clubs that you were in, like, did somebody, like, recruit you, or how did it go about?
I mean, in, like, the first few weeks of every semester, there's, like club day. I don't know what you guys call it here, but all the clubs get together in like, the lawn, and they would recruit people. And I knew I wanted to be involved once again, like I've always been all my life. So I went roughly around every table to see what I could fit in or where I would feel like home. And instantly, I knew I wanted to continue pursuing and be in activities and clubs that would help me with my career. So I joined all of these journalism clubs. And then I also joined Hermanas Unidas, and it was an organization that would promote community service, networking, like social skills, and education. And I was like, okay, that's definitely me. That's what I stand for. That's all I've ever stand for. I'm going to also join it. So, yeah, pretty much recruited.
Cool, cool. So when you finished the community college, did you switch with just the units, or did you also get the associates?
I got it, yeah. Since I ended up staying that 3.5 years in that community college, I ended up getting 4 degrees after I graduated. I got like the social behavioral science, a social science, I got a creative writing, and I got an English associate. So I ended up getting 4 associates, and I transferred out to the university.
That's cool. How did the different degrees come about? Like, how did you know that? Oh, like,
all I know is that it was about time for me to transfer it out, and that I had 4 degrees. That's all. I'm like, I know these aren't gonna really pay my bills because they're just an associate. However, for my parents on that other end, it was an accomplishment so big because, like I said, it was only my brother and I at that time, and then my sister that had gone to somewhat of a community college or like a little trade school. So seeing my mom and my dad have those degrees in front of them, it meant the world. As for me, not so much, because I knew that I was gonna pursue a much bigger thing, and that was to get a bachelor's degree.
How did you reach the decision of like declaring the specific major when you went to the university?
I went into as a psychology major, but I was like, I already knew that I had to, switch my major. Like, I knew that I was I'm gonna graduate with a somewhat of like behavioral science, creative writing, English, associate. But once I went in there, I was like, hey, I'm a psychology major originally, but I'm switching. And once I met with like the counselors and the department, and we did the switch, and I ended up getting and being much more heavily involved and really head on with the journalism degree.
When you entered the university, did you know anybody from the community college that you transferred from?
Yeah, a few people, but because my community college was very relatively close to the university. So, a bunch of people are locals and commuters. So they would just transfer it out. So yeah, I know, but it wasn't like I would see them on a regular because, you all have busy schedules, different school schedules, some work, some have night classes, morning classes. So it would all vary, but I knew of people that went there.
And of course, finals can be stressful, and midterms
absolutely.
and stuff. What strategies that you use to succeed?
Study. I would study. I would live in the library. Although I was super involved, like I mentioned, the library was my second home. I loved the library. I spent a good chunk of my time at the library, if not in my my newsroom radio at Cal State Northridge. If I wasn't there, I was at a club. If I wasn't at the club, I'd be at the library. So I would study. I'd ask for help. I would get all the resources that I needed to eventually, get the good grades and make me pass my exams, my midterms, and all that stuff.
Ooh. We'll be right back after our first commercial break. I'm back here with my guest, and of course, this is the time of we have everybody reintroduce themselves again. So, have my guest reintroduce herself, and also how can people reach her to contact her.
So my name is Lupe Llerenas. I am a host, producer, and entertainment music journalist, and you can find me on all social media platforms under Lupe Llerenas. That's LupeLlerenas, and yeah. That's pretty much it.
Cool. And so going back to the topic of going to the university, you know, right, obviously, I guess at yeah, obviously at universities, there's like fraternities and stuff like that. Did you get to partake in that or no?
No, I didn't partake in any sororities or not fraternities, obviously, but definitely not sororities. I did have a lot of friends. My roommates were a part of it, or was a part of it. One of my roommates. So, and I knew a lot of friends that were in sororities and fraternities. And then they ended up becoming like really good friends of mine. So, none. I wasn't a part of it, like I said. However, I was very familiar with all of that.
What was it like for you? The difference between the community college?
Um, things got a little more, I guess, tough. From the transition of a community college, because it was still relatively pretty like smooth going from high school to a community college. However, when it came to a community college into a Cal State, a four-year university, things did get a little more like stuff is not due in a week. Stuff is due the night before. You have a deadline. You have an exam Monday night, and you also have an exam Tuesday morning. So, on that end, it became a little tough. But it was nothing that I didn't know how to manage at the end of the day. But I feel like going through all those circumstances and situations gave me the early on of time management and how to manage things like that, like an exam and a project and deadline for a work assignment, do that same night, and me being a part of like organizations and college. So all of that really played a role in me knowing eventually how to maneuver things around while still being a college student and getting my stuff done.
Obviously books can be expensive. And,
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering, did you also have to work at the same time? What was that like? I like to call this the timeline. It's pretty much the different jobs you've held leading up to where you are today.
For me, yeah, books definitely are expensive. I feel like they're a ripoff in college. I feel like you can get a lot of that stuff. You can rent them. You can you don't have to get them at the bookstore unless they're only sold at the bookstore because that's what the professor ended up having. But yeah, they're a complete ripoff. However, there's other alternatives out there that you can get books for a lot cheaper. As for jobs, I was very fortunate to not have worked a lot throughout college. I didn't start an actual job until like my senior year of college. I worked at a retail store called in the mall, and it was one of the most fun retail experiences I've ever had. Fun, stressful at the same time, but mostly fun. I know a lot of people that hated their retail jobs. I, on my end, pretty much enjoyed it. So I was at that retail store for roughly about 5 years. And then after there, I went on to like having a few internships in like radio and broadcast, and I was still at the retail job. Once that was done, I ended up getting my first like quote unquote big girl job over at Revolt TV, media and like entertainment, and I was no longer at the retail store anymore. However, I would go during the holiday season because they needed the help and because I magically liked working retail in the holidays, and it would work with my schedule, so I would go during the holidays to help while I was still over at Revolt Music, media and entertainment. And then from there on, I got my first big layoff. I got laid off from my quote-unquote big girl company job, and it felt like the world was gonna end, and it actually never ended. It was just a little like roller coaster bump that I had happened along the way, and from there on, I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do. I had just gotten laid off. I was a year and a half out of college, and it was me picking up freelance work, a lot of like red carpets, a lot of writing articles, a lot of getting paid on that end. And then because I had gotten laid off, I went back to the retail store and they happily took me back, and I was there for like a good 7 months until I ended up getting the job that I'm in now, and that is iHeartMedia.
Cool. Tell us about your role.
At iHeartMedia, so I help with promotions and marketing. So pretty much we cover events, we go interact with like the crowds, and then social media and marketing on that end. We the engagement with the audiences, what the audience gravitates to, what they like, what they don't like, and then with that with that data, coming up with relatively related content that the audience will like based on what they liked in the first place. So yeah.
Cool. And what was it like, the intern process?
The intern process, for me, it was, I didn't really have any internships throughout college. That was one thing that I did. It was a little mess up, but I learned my lesson, and I realized that I probably should have interned a lot more and a lot earlier throughout college. So if you're listening and you're a college student and you want to intern, go ahead and intern right now at this precise moment. If you're a sophomore, junior, intern. If you're a senior, still intern. You're a little late, but still intern. And I did. I interned. I got my first internship a month before graduating, before getting my Bachelor's of Arts. Very late in my timeline, but I did it still, and I got it done. And my first internship was writing for a music entertainment site, and we would write about hip-hop, we would write about music, and we would write anything like entertainment-wise. So that was my first internship. A matter of fact, I had 3 internships after graduating college with my Bachelor's of Arts, because no one wanted to hire me, and I was still at this retail store, and I was like, I need to get my feet wet still. If no one is going to hire me, I need to somewhat do what I like to do and get myself out there, and that's exactly what I did. I was on that music, I was a writer for that music site, KarenCivil.com, and then in November, that was in April of that year when I graduated, and then in November of that year I pitched myself again to another publication, and they ended up hiring me and getting me as a writer. And then soon after, maybe like I want to say 6-7 months after, I became their like social media manager, and I would run all their social media accounts, and from there on, that internship, those 2 internships, the KarenCivil.com and the RM Base one, later on became actual jobs where I would get paid to write and to manage social media. And then after those 2 were, under my belt, those 2 internships, I ended up getting a 3rd internship a year and a half later after graduating, and that was with Homegrown Radio, who is now on Real 92.3, which is a radio station here in Los Angeles.
Pretty cool. I know that usually we hear like once you graduate, it's usually harder to get an internship because like they usually want people to work between the school.
It is hard. It is hard, but there's internships out there that don't require college credit. It's a much of a hassle to find them. However, they are out there and you can find them. It's just you putting in the work, wanting to actually intern. I know a lot of people that, oh my God, I just graduated, I don't want to intern. I'm not going to get paid. Yeah, you're not going to get paid. But if you don't have anything under your belt, no experience whatsoever, what do you expect? Like you might want to take that in consideration and be like, okay, I don't have the experience, but I'm willing to get the experience by interning, even if I just graduated or even if I'm a senior in college. Like, get the experience, period, whatever it may be, get your feet wet, and see if that's what you really want to do. Because I know a lot of people that get a degree and you're like, oh, well, I don't want to do so and so anymore because it's not, it doesn't call my attention. Just get the experience, get your feet wet, and like that can eventually help you to polish your resume, to make it look good, and to eventually continue growing in your field and what you want to do.
Yeah, that's definitely very helpful because, people make it sound like, oh, like the window period left you, that's it. Like once you graduate, that's it.
And another thing, I feel like we are so crucial with our age limit and our timeline of society. Like, people say, oh, by 21, 22, you need to be done with college and you need to have a degree. No, that is not the case, especially not right now. It's totally cool if you're 24 and you're just graduating college. It's totally cool and okay if you are a single parent, 20-something-year-old going back to college. Like, that's totally normal. Don't let society or anything like get into your head and be like, oh, well, I can't be doing this because I'm already late. No. You can start right now and be early on in your career. It's never too late or too, early to do what you want to do. So if you want to go back to college, get a degree, great. Go ahead and do it. Once you grow older, you'll realize that mindset and you'll realize that mentality is so naive and so dumb that everyone's success comes later on in life. Yeah, maybe one or two people get their success in their 20s, but everyone else's success, everyone that you think is successful in whatever field that you aspire to be in, got their success in their late 20s, early 30s. So it's totally cool if you don't want to do what you think you thought you were going to do. And it's totally okay to start late or to start early because you're never, it's never too late or too early.
You know how in the movies and in TV shows there's always these groups where you see the nerds in one table and the athletic ones in one. Where did you associate with during lunch?
My little group of friends, we had a bench. In high school everyone has benches or everyone has locations when they're at. My bench was around the quad area, and it was a red bench, and it was in the corner, and we'd hang out with your group of 7-10 people, and then from there on, you'd either walk around or you'd go to other benches. So I just had a little red bench in the corner in the quad with a bunch of my friends, and we would just play around, have jokes with everyone else around.
The other question I ask my guests is it's a two-part. First off, where do you see yourself after retirement?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Maybe I don't know. I don't know where I see myself after retirement because I know for a fact I still want to be in the city. I like, maybe, who knows, by then I will change, but I do definitely still want to be in the city. Maybe have a dog or two, maybe have a husband, kids. I don't know. All I know is that I still want to be somewhat giving back.
And the other part is, what would you like your legacy to be?
Oof, my legacy. Dang it, that is a really good question. I always ask that question. What would you like your legacy to be? And my legacy, I definitely want my work to be meaningful. I know that every day I wake up with a purpose and I'm in this earth and God is waking me up every morning to fulfill not only my needs, but for me to be a bigger outlet for other people. So definitely I want to continue to impact people in some shape, way, or form. And, just be helpful, be meaningful, and let my work speak for itself. Oftentimes, we get so carried away with, oh, I don't have this certain amount of credibility or this or that, that we forget that we actually have the hustle, the creativity, the dedication, and the patience to continue going in anything that you want to do in life. So definitely I want my work to speak for itself, and I want my legacy to be, a representation of not only myself as a woman, but as a Latina, as a Mexican, parents of a daughter of immigrant parents, and definitely just be a prime example to others in the community and the next future or the next wave of talented individuals.
I had drifted through different majors for a while until I found I took a broadcasting course.
Yeah.
And the professor would open up by saying, "Oh, like Mando Fresco started off in my class. It's just how you are today. You're at the same starting point
Yeah.
as where he is." And he just took my classes, and he just spent time at the radio station until nighttime, until I have to always kick him out and be like, "Mando, I want to go home." And he'd always tell him that at night, "Yeah, I want to go home." And that Mando just kept being persistent. So it's great to, pick the mind of, someone that's already in the industry and stuff. And, I always like to say, you never know who can be listening to this show. And chances are there's a particular audience member who they relate to the guest that I had here today. And it could be anything. It could be their upbringing. It could be the schooling, the degrees they got, or the job they have now.
Correct.
So what advice do you have for that individual?
It's funny that you mentioned Mando Fresco because I admired Mando Fresco growing up. I used to listen to his shows on the radio, and then I got the opportunity to meet him in person, and now we work in the same industry. So Mondo's a great example of that as well. But the advice that I would have for just anyone that is listening or anyone that wants to do something, it doesn't have to be music, it doesn't have to be entertainment. It can be in engineering, it can be you, wanting to get your own business. Just go out there and do it. We live in an era where everything is at a tip of our fingers. You can't do something, Google it. You need to figure out how to prompt something, YouTube it. We all have a camera. We all have a smartphone. There's no excuse why not to do something. You want to intern, ask for that. There's, guarantee you, someone will know someone who's gonna know the answer to what you want. So just get out there, do it. If you're scared, do it being scared. If you have a fear, do it being feared. Just do it. Because you don't want to live in that mindset of what if I would have not done it? What if? So at least you're going to try it, and at least you're going to do it, and if it works out, great, it works out. And if it didn't, okay, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, figure out where you went wrong, figure out what you can improve on, and continue going. So that's pretty much what I would tell someone listening that wants to do something. Go out there, do it. If you're scared, do it with fear. Everything is at our fingertips. We have the power to do anything, especially in the digital world that we live in right now.
And of course, in life, sometimes we face rejection. Tell us some advice for rejection.
I've gotten rejected literally my whole entire life. Since I wanted to be in radio to where I am now. One company itself rejected me 9 different times. 9 different times, and every single time that I would apply to, I'd get rejected. However, getting rejected to me became like the norm. It really just was like, oh, okay, I got rejected. On to the next. It never faced me. Up until this day, if I do get rejected for something or anything that I want to do, okay, and next, that's it. In life, you're going to get rejected. In life, it's going to happen. But it's up to you to how you take that and how you continue going. In my opinion, I see rejection as a fuel to keep me going. When I got rejected from that company 9 different times, I kept each email of those 9 different times that I got rejected, and I would screenshot them, and I kept them in a folder. Till this day, I still have them in a folder. Because at that, like, in that time, it was fuel for me to continue going. And now that I look back, that company and those people have reached out to me so many times wanting me to be a part of something they're doing. Unfortunately, my time passed wanting to be with them. However, I don't wish them bad because I'm still here. However, because they rejected me so many different times, I got to where I am now. And honestly, have rejection be something to motivate you, and don't let it face you. It's gonna happen. You have to accept it, and life continues. That's it.
How about advice if like maybe someone has like maybe like naysayers, especially like with the idea that some people might be like, oh, like why do you volunteer? You're not getting paid. About the value of volunteer work in general.
The value of volunteer work, and I feel like internship goes into that. The value of working for free. My mentor DJ had once told me this, and it was very pivotal in my career and in my mindset. And he says something around the lines of something around the lines of people don't see opportunity because it's not attached to a paycheck, or something around those lines. And I don't think it was someone told him. I think it was Charlemagne the God who told DJ Head and had told me. And that made such an impact in my life, because all my life I've been told, ever since I got into like the radio world and like the music industry, why are you going to work for free if they're not going to pay you? People don't understand that in life, majority of the time, you have to get your feet wet to know what you're going to do. And you have to build your experience to build a resume, to build, your work ethic. So why not work for free when it's there? Obviously, it's not going to be paid. We know that for a fact. But it's going to give you the work ethic, the dedication, and the knowledge for you to continue going and building your brand, your empire, what you want to do in the future. Same goes with volunteering. It fuels you, at least for me. When I was so hungry, and I'm still hungry for success, but it's a different hunger. Back then, when I didn't have anything, when I was freshly out of college and everyone was rejecting me and I didn't have anything under my belt, these internships that were completely free gave me a yes. So I went ahead and took them, ran with that opportunity, and made the best out of it. And that's how one led to the other. Karen Civil led to R&B Base. That R&B Base led to Homegrown Radio. Homegrown Radio eventually led to Revolt TV. Revolt TV eventually led to, iHeartMedia, to where I am now. So all those little free work or internships that I was doing, it all made a bigger picture at the end. So just do it and be up for it, and be willing to learn and build whatever it is that you want to do in life.
What was it like, obviously, you mentioned your siblings were older and stuff, and the path that you took, like, their reaction, how different were you guys of the paths you guys pursued?
Well, all of my 2 older sisters are, like, in, like, nursing, public health type. My brother is on the health side, so somewhat related, and then I'm on, like, the entertainment music side. So, very different, but we've all supported each other in every aspect. That's because our parents always told us to help each other and to motivate each other. And because of them, we are where we are now, successful in our careers, because we have such a unity and such a bond with each other.
What was graduation day like for you?
Graduation was, it was exciting. It was exciting. However, I knew I wanted more. So it was just like a little milestone in my lane. However, once again, for my parents, it was everything. I was their first child that actually graduated from a 4-year university. It was never before seen for my dad and for my mom. So, and especially for my family. And then it was just exciting, but to know that I wanted a lot more and that I still want a lot more is even more fulfilling. That I was able and that I'm able to give them this right now, and then eventually I'm going to give them my master's degree, and then after that I'm going to give them a PhD. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here on the Golden Spotlight.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
This concludes this episode of the Golden Spotlight, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time.